All right, so um, the last video I talked a little bit about determining if a relation is a function. And we really just looked at groups of ordered pairs and looked at all the x values to see if any of those repeated. And if there were any repeating x values, then we knew that the relation was not a function. The next step is to look at a graph. For instance, just a graph that maybe has points. So if this is my x and y axis, and I'm just going to put some random points on this graph. Now, you're gonna see some problems like this in a worksheet probably, and it's gonna ask you, is this graph a function? And when we're looking at graphs, there's a very easy way to determine if this graph, or they also might call it a relation, is this a function? And to do this, there's a test called the vertical line test. And what the vertical line test says is that if I place a vertical line anywhere on this graph, and I'm just going to draw a couple in here. Whoops, I kind of messed that one up. Okay, there's a vertical line. Does that line touch more than one point from this graph or relation? And as you can see right now, that vertical line only touches 1 point on my graph. I put another line on here anywhere. I'm going to go over here. Again, this vertical line only touches 1 point. So you can kind of see as we're looking at this, vertical line only touches 1 point. This line doesn't touch any points at all. That one should be touching that dot there. And if I drew one right here, that would also touch only 1 point. I could go ahead and do the same for the rest of these, just so you see. So anywhere that I look on this graph, a vertical line will touch a point at most only one time. If it doesn't touch a point, like this one that we did right here, that's fine. That doesn't change anything. This graph or this relation is a function. This is a function. And if they ask you, why is this graph a function? You would say that it passes the vertical line test. All right, so this relation or this graph did pass the vertical line test, so this is a function. So I think you can imagine now, I'm going to go ahead and draw a graph that is not going to be a function. And I bet you could think to yourself right now, well, to make it not be a function, what would I really have to do? Because right now, if I'm looking at it, vertical line only touches 1 point. Vertical line only touches 1 point. Only touches one, only touches one, only touches one, only touches 1 point. Now to make this not a function, all I would have to do is add one more point somewhere on this graph that lines up directly above or below one of my already existing points. So now, if I were looking at this graph, I could see that right here, this graph or this relation fails the vertical line test because my vertical line touches this graph or these points in more than one place. So if I were answering this question, is this graph or is this relation a function, I would say that it is not a function. It fails the vertical line test. So, if you look at the worksheet that I've uploaded to the Google Classroom, the lesson 9.1 worksheet skills practice SP, I think you'll see a couple of graphs on there, and it will ask you, is this a function? And you would use the vertical line test to look at it and say, well, yes, it passes the vertical line test, so it is a function, or no, it fails the vertical line test, it is not a function.